about the context of why we wanted to have this.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca. Hey, everyone. My name is Angela Dunn. I'm an adjunct at Gutman Community College. I've been an active member of the Professional Staff Congress for about 5 years. And through my experiences, I've learned just how undemocratic the sanctioned decision-making structures in our union are, from closed bargaining to who does and does not get the right to speak at union meetings. At Strike School, I learned that it is not only possible, but it's imperative that these structures change to center the voices and initiatives of union members. I believe that the power of a union comes from the rank and file, and I've been engaged in rank and file organizing for these years to recenter that notion and to fight for democracy in the PSC, for direct democracy in the PSC. I had the opportunity to attend Strike School with thousands of organizers from around the world, and I'll tell you that it was so validating for me. We learned from labor organizers like Jane McAlevey and Sarah Nelson, as well as organizers from successful public sector strikes like Jolene Levitt at United Teachers of Los Angeles and Stacey Davis Gates of the Chicago Teachers Union, about how power comes from the members and how important it is that members believe that, and for union organizers to instill that. We learned that a strike is our most powerful tool as a union, and we are collectively weakened when there is a culture of fear around that word. We're past the crisis point at CUNY where we need to start organizing for a strike. With 3,000 adjuncts laid off, the threat of 20% budget cuts and retrenchment in the spring, increasing class sizes and rising tuition, and the real potential of unsafe reopenings. At Hunter College High School, we saw how just the threat of a strike had the power to get the teachers' demands met. It's going to take a lot of work to build up the capacity of our union. This can only be done by activating every member through these conversations. And we learned that as well at Strike School. There are no shortcuts. We're hosting this Skillshare today to build relationships between members and increase rank and file engagement in building toward a democratic and strike-ready union. The more of us who come to understand the power we have to collectively change our conditions, the closer we are to actually changing them. I'm being sincere when I say that I'm so glad you're here, and thank you for hearing me.
Hey, great. Thank you, Angela. That was amazing. And so next in our agenda, we have just a couple of brief presentations about what we thought were like the really key components and, you know, great big takeaways. You know, this Strike School was like 10 hours long, so at least, right? And we're going to try to cover what we learned in an hour and a half. So anyways, Boyda Johnstone will be our first presenter.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Rebecca and Angela. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Boyda. I am a full-timer in English at Borough of Manhattan Community College. Just been there for this is my 3rd year. And I'm here to very briefly talk about one of the first concepts that Jane McAlevey introduced to us, and that's the concept of identifying organic leaders. I was going to share my screen, but I actually don't think I'm going to complicate it like that. It's a pretty simple concept. So basically, organic leaders are people. And by the way, I'm not sure we mentioned this, but with the agenda that we posted in the chat, there's a strike manual that we've put together that has all of these concepts in it. So you can actually, if you want, open that first link on your own and follow along. I'm not sure if it'll be exactly the same order as we're talking about them today, but organic leaders are people who can bring other people with them, who can motivate people to come out for an action, who can get people to do something. They may or may not already be involved in the union. So think of people you know on your campus or in your workplace who actually get things done. Who do people go to when they have questions about departmental policies or need advice? It's not always, I mean, these people I think are likable, but they also know their shit. If we get those people on board with a strike, we're that much closer to a supermajority. So Jane McAlevey contrasts these organic leaders with activists who are people who are willing to perform job actions or go to protests, but cannot, for various reasons, organize others. These people are crucial in strike organizing as they are the ones that show up to actions, to stand on picket lines, but at least according to McAlevey's model, they aren't actually organic leaders or organizers. And I think we could sort of debate about whether these categories are actually mutually exclusive or not. But we're just keeping things simple for today. So I'm just going to go into teacher mode for 1 second and give you like 10 seconds to think about and maybe jot down the name of like 2 potential organic leaders in your workplaces or on your campus who you might think about appealing to and how you could do that. I'll just give you like, 10 seconds. Okay, so at least according to McAlevey, figuring out who the key organizers in all departments and across titles are is crucial in building the mass majority of workers, because those organizers are the ones building, who could help us build towards a strike at the various work sites. That's it for me in the organic leader.
Cool, that's very good. Yes, I nominate you as an organic leader at BMCC. And now Erin is going to talk about some other points that we learned about, context, semantics, structure tests, things like that. Go, Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm at the Graduate Center, and I'm here to bring you both the easiest and the hardest lessons from Strike School. Let me just share my screen. Oh no. Can I? I made a really nice PowerPoint. Okay, I may not do that. Just 1 second.
I think you'd have to be made co-host, maybe?
Yes, co-host.
Okay, I think this might work. Okay, so here are some things that you may have heard in your workplace. Things like, the union is here to help you. You have a problem, file a grievance. Thank you for coming to this meeting. And paying dues is a good investment because the union fights for better pay. Now on the surface, there's nothing wrong with any of these things, and they sound pretty good, right? According to McAlevey, no, they're not productive things to say. And the insight is that we want to think twice about what meaning our words carry. And so there are certain things that what we're saying here, there are certain things that these sentences do that we want to avoid doing in our organizing. So what are better alternatives? We might try, we are the union. Instead of thinking of the union as something outside of yourself that you turn to because you're on the outside and the union is going to help you, and you relate to the union as an outsider, you want to think of yourself as part of the union. You and your coworkers are the union. There is no entity outside of the workforce. You have a problem, file a grievance. We might think about it in different terms. Think about if you march with on your boss with your coworkers, the boss will listen, right? The option is not only to file a grievance or to, outsource your problem, but rather think about how you can build solidarity with your coworkers in order to change the workplace at its root. Thank you for coming to this meeting is probably the most innocuous one, but we might think about how, again, we're sort of thanking the worker for doing something, as a favor rather than as something that really benefits everyone and is part of building something bigger. So we might try to say something like, oops, oh no, let's get started. And finally, the one that might seem to you as most problematic on the surface, paying dues is a good investment because you get out of it more than you put into it, right? There is no limit to what unions can mobilize to win. And so sort of the sky's the limit, there's a world to win. We don't just fight for better wages. There are so many examples of unions mobilizing to fight for social justice in a variety of ways that really exceed the traditional bread and butter conception of what unions sometimes are restricted to in our minds, right? So this is the easiest thing. You change your language, you change the way that you speak about the union, and therefore start to think about the union and the way that you're sharing with other people, and how they start to think about the union as being something that they are part of, something that they are building with other people, rather than something that is an organization that they relate to as an outsider. Okay, so that's the easy part. You know, you just tweak your language. Now comes the hard part. So Jane McAlevey talks about structure tests, which we can think of as the building blocks of strike building. So you don't just go on strike. What you do is build a series of structure tests, she calls them, that help you escalate towards a strike. So that might be a petition, which is a fairly easy, low risk thing to do. And the idea of the structure test is that you conceive of these actions as actions that can test whether the workforce is ready to take the next step, basically. So if you get 90% signatures on a petition, then you know that people are ready to take that risk. They're ready to signal that they are willing to go on strike. They're ready to do whatever the goal that you're trying to meet is. If they're willing to attach a photo, 90% of people, you know, take a photo saying, I will go on strike. That's, you know, an incrementally bigger goal that is met. And you sort of build on that until finally you get 90% of people voting yes on a strike on a set day. And at which point you're able to test constantly, like, where are we? And so you're not going blindly into a strike from, you know, today to tomorrow. Rather, you're building over time in a measurable way. And the way that you measure is the final element of this lesson, which is these wall tests. So in McAlevey's experience, and in the experience of a lot of union organizers in the workplace, they've used these wall charts, which are big, you know, cardboard presentation posters that really track in a really visual way how many of the workers in a set workplace are on board. So I'm sorry for this like screenshot of a Zoom call, but it shows you that this is like a big poster on the wall that everyone can see. Everyone can see, you know, who has a star, who doesn't, who has, you know, who is where, and who needs to be convinced, and who's on board already, who's the sort of leader in the workplace, who can we turn to, et cetera. And that is all done in a very measurable way so that there's no guessing. You know, when you go on strike, you know that everyone's going to be there because you have measured it as you went along. Obviously, in the era of COVID and just in a workplace like CUNY, this is far less manageable to have a poster in a workplace, right? We're so scattered all over. I just wanted to give the example of using spreadsheets. When we did the Vote No campaign in the last contract, we used a spreadsheet that we thought was fairly sophisticated here. So we tabulated all of the campuses and all of the people who had been reached on these campuses, what rate of response we had, what percentage of no votes we had, you know, who was the point person on that campus. And then here's an example of the spreadsheet for each campus. As you can see, the tabs on the bottom are all the different campuses. You can see, you know, who was the person who reached this person and whether they were ready to vote or not. I won't dwell on this. I think I anonymized it, but you can see that there are different categories and you can really track that. Okay, so I guess the lessons are just keep track of your data. Data is important here, and try to build bigger as you go on, and use language that really, you know, conceptualize the goal that we're all trying to reach here. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin. That was great. The last, and kind of to me, just personally to me, it was the most interesting part of Strike School was the idea of the structured organizing conversation. So Boyda is going to introduce that, and then we're actually going to have like an example to share with you guys. So go ahead, Boyda.
Hi again. So I did have a slide for this. I will attempt. There are just too many different things going on for my small computer. But basically, here we go. This is again in the manual, and we have the right link for the CUNY specific manual that we made in the chat now. So the goal for the structured organizing conversation is for each worker to understand that nothing will change without their active participation. The conversation should be 70% listening and 30% talking. Do your best to tie in the specific worker grievances that come up in the second step to the broader vision conversation in the third step. Try to write down notes as you listen to them, use the language that they use, connect their struggle to the broader struggle, and make sure to egg on, to get agitated, to agitate, and to motivate frustration with the status quo, because as we know, despair, or the sense that nothing can change, is the greatest enemy to organizing. Another one of the principles that we learned from McAlevey is that you're not supposed to fear the long, uncomfortable silence. And this can be like the hardest part, but there's a step we'll get to, number 4, when you have to call a question and give them a really hard ask. It kind of goes back to what Erin was saying before about not third-partying the union. We are asking people to take action, to move out of a position of passivity into one where they're actually willing to take action and join with us to transform the union. So, and we're going back to what Erin was saying as well about the semantics. The specific words you use matter, but of course this takes practice. We need to make sure that we engage their own individual agency, which is the key to win the change that they want. So using the language of you sometimes instead of we helps set up framing the choice and framing the hard choice. So here are the 6 steps. Some of it might seem intuitive, some of it not so much. So the first step, of course, introduce yourself, set the context for the conversation. Second step, ask what their issues are and try to agitate. So find out for, often something we're thinking about now is school restarting issues, or for adjuncts, whether you've been reappointed, whether you're losing health, you still have your health insurance, what your classes are looking like now for the spring. Don't assume that you know what's going on. And this is the part where you just really have to listen and take notes. Third step is the vision and education. And so you draw in some of their specific language into the plan to win that we have developed as a union and as RAFA, directly connected to the issues that they've raised. The only way they can win is by building strength in numbers. And so here you can raise expectations, like you don't have to put up with this bullshit. Fourthly, that'll lead us to calling the question. Recently we've been circulating a strike authorization vote petition. So that's when we would have said, like, okay, are you willing to sign this? Your name will remain confidential, but this is one way that you can actually take steps towards transforming the union. And then I think the hardest step can be the 5th one, which is inoculation, because we're not under any pretenses that this is easy. And we're not here to say everything will be fine. The management will use retaliatory measures. And so you have to, and the PSC leadership doesn't like talking about a strike. So we have to be very communicative and upfront about those kinds of risks. And so the 5th step, ask them how they think the administration will respond and warn them about the kinds of things they will hear from admin or the union bureaucrats. And then number 6 is make a plan with them, a work or assignment, make sure you follow up. I also think this can be really hard to say, okay, when can we talk again? Can you speak to your coworkers? I don't want this conversation to be the end, but I want it to just be the beginning. Think about who in your workplace might be an organic leader, and when can we schedule a time to check back in together, or could you come to this upcoming meeting so that we can build power together? And then to actually, as organizers, all of us are very busy and overwhelmed. Sometimes we can forget to actually follow up. So I actually think there should be a 7th step, which is like actually follow up. So that's the presentation of the 6 steps. And now we're going to have, like they did in strike school, a couple people demonstrating them for us.
And those couple people are me and David. And all right, just got to get ready.
I will be playing the role of a tenure track professor, which I am not, but I will be inhabiting that mental space.
And I'm me. Hey, David, how are you today?
Hi, I'm all right.
All right, awesome. I teach at Gutman, actually in your department, and I'm a member of the PSC. I'm just checking in with fellow members to see what's going on with you and what if there are any issues we can work through, specifically regarding maybe the increase in workload that a lot of us are experiencing this semester.
Yeah, well, I am pretty worried about that. I know the classes, the course caps that we had are sort of going up and up, and even like, the classes that I have now, there are 4 or 5 more people than even the course caps say are allowed. So I'm a little worried about that. And I'm also worried, that despite being on the tenure track, I don't know if I'm going to have a job here in the near future.
Yeah. That's very real. I'm also facing a lot of the same issues, even though I'm an adjunct, like with workload and stuff. And I'm wondering if you are involved in any organizing around this, or if you have started working toward or talked to anyone about working toward dealing with any of these issues.
Not really. I mean, I've signed into the union, and I know the union is sort of working on these things, but I kind of let them do that. And I talk to my department chair sometimes, but not really anybody else.
Has anyone offered any help or any avenues to deal with any of these issues?
No, I think basically it seems to me like the message is just sort of keep my head down and work hard, and hopefully it all gets better at some point.
I know that a lot of people are having issues with reassigned time, especially full-timers. Is there anything regarding that you are dealing with?
Well, a little bit. It hasn't been something I've thought about a lot, but yeah, like I know that a lot of my coworkers seem to be going through that.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard, but there's actually the potential and the threat of more budget cuts coming down on us that would trigger retrenchment. And that means that everybody's job would be on the table here. I know that you probably heard that 3,000 adjuncts have been laid off at the beginning of this semester, but the threat is permeating through all titles right now, and especially with the incoming actually 20% cuts that are going to be happening as soon as the winter session, but definitely in the spring. And we can't wait for people to take action. I think that, there have been a lot of work on different campuses with strike authorization committees being formed. As workers, a strike is our most powerful threat. I was wondering if you have thought about that, or if you are on board with that.
Well, I haven't thought about striking before, but I'm a little worried. I have a lot of students, and I know that if I strike, I guess like what would happen to them? Like a lot of the students I have are really vulnerable, and would I leave them sort of in a lurch?
Yeah, that's really real. And I definitely believe in striking, and I believe that it's our most powerful tool. And I definitely would not want to strike to hurt students. We have to understand also that our teaching conditions are their learning conditions. So when these budget cuts happen and CUNY is increasingly defunded and relies on student tuition, our students are the ones that are hurt. And we are actually in a position to take that power back, right? We also need our students to fight with us. A lot of times, and a lot of conversations that I've been having with students, when they hear about what's going on, they get really upset and interested. And I think you'll find that a lot of students are more on the side of faculty striking than not. So I think that I want to ask, you know, how much more of this can CUNY take? I don't think much. And and again, our power comes from collectively withholding our labor. And every member needs to be on board for a successful strike to happen. Would you sign a petition calling on our union leadership to hold a strike authorization vote?
I can definitely see the power in it. Is there any danger that I will face retaliation if I do that? Like, would my department like get me off the tenure track or like?
That's a really real question. It's actually illegal for your department chair or for retaliation to take action against anyone for strike activity. So I think you can be safe there. And also I want to say that we would not actually have a strike until we have a supermajority, which is over 90% of the people in our union on board. So you taking that first step would move us closer to actually enacting this.
Okay, yeah, that seems great. I'm convinced.
I would love to talk to you more about this at a later date. Would you want to have that conversation?
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
Awesome. So I'm going to follow up with an email. I'm going to text you the strike authorization petition. And it would be so wonderful if you could share it with your coworkers. And we'll find another time where we can talk.
Yeah, I could send that around.
Awesome. All right. Bye. Woo.
Yay, good job, everybody. So I just wanted to reach out to, just address what Carol put in the chat. It is not, in New York, we do have the Taylor law, which, it really makes a lot of people worried, but it is not illegal for us to move to a strike authorization vote. Right. So signing that petition, that's not illegal. That is not a Taylor law violation. So, the bigger risk, there is a risk in going on strike, but the bigger risk is letting CUNY fall to shit. Right. So, anyways, okay. Yeah. So, what do you have to lose? All right. So now what we'd like to do is have people go into breakout rooms. It's terrifying. And, yes, honey, I'm sorry. Oh, my daughter's taking a class at Brooklyn College right now, and she just got kicked out. Amazing. Anyways, so yeah, so we're gonna go into breakout rooms, and Boyda is gonna be running that.
Okay, so just to be clear, there is a script. We're not just gonna like toss you into rooms unheeded, but we put together this potential script that you can use. It has the completely fictitious scenario that we are in the professional staff congress at CUNY and thousands of adjuncts are being laid off and the union is doing very little about it. So I'm sure no one in here can even relate to that. And we're doing it a little bit. So there are 3 roles. One person plays the organizer, one person plays the organized. You get to choose, whatever title you want, try different positions. And then one person, there's a debrief document. One person is sort of the observer, and you can observe the interaction and comment on it like in a fishbowl discussion, and then give some feedback afterwards. So you're gonna be in there for 20 minutes. That means you might want to try to time it so that you have 2 conversations of 10 minutes each. so that you can switch roles and practice different roles. And then we'll come back and sort of bring it home to the context of at CUNY. And I'm just going to put you in the breakout rooms randomly because that's easiest. So sorry, not sorry. Does that make sense, everyone? The script is posted in the chat, and so you should be able to view it.
Hey,
Hey,
I thought I was supposed to stay in the main room with you.
We're